Welcome to Ayurveda and Spirituality with your host, Alakananda Ma, a renowned Ayurvedic expert and a graduate of a top London medical school. She is the principal of Alundi Ayurveda Gurukula, a unique apprenticeship-style school in Boulder, Colorado. She is a spiritual mother, teacher, flower essence maker, and storyteller. Join us as we uncover the timeless principles of Ayurveda, discover practical tips for enhancing vitality, and explore the deeper dimensions of spirituality that intertwine with the ancient science of life.
Namaste. Hello, friends. Okay, let's do it. This is actually my third try at this topic, the Epstein Files, from horror to hope. So let's do this and see if we can get it this time, please. So I'm going to start with a quote from a woman I do respect very much, author and investigative journalist from Britain, Carole Cadwalladr. And this is from her How to Survive the Broligarchy substack, and she's titled this one, We All Live in Jeffrey Epstein's World. So she said, by Tuesday, I had a scoopy piece almost ready to publish, but I've been unable to finish it. I have, to be perfectly honest, been overwhelmed. Some of the key stories it reveals are areas that have been my specialist interest for years. It, meaning the Epstein Files, the Kremlin, Silicon Valley, MAGA and the European far right, Israeli intelligence, and there, slap bang in the middle of it all, is a man who I'd never wanted to pay any attention to, Jeffrey Epstein. Not only are they all connected, Epstein connects them. So many of the names in the files are subjects of long-standing interest. Peter Thiel, Steve Bannon, Elon Musk, Oleg Deripaska, even Peter Mandelson. It's a gold mine of new evidence and connections and revelation after revelation. She is really describing pretty much what I went through myself as I tried to dip into the Epstein Files. Like her, I've been following many of these areas of interest, the same areas of interest, for a long while. When Brexit happened, we were all shocked, and I knew that some force had made Brexit happen against the best judgment of the people of the United Kingdom. And once Brexit happened, I knew the first Trump presidency was going to happen. I didn't yet know what the forces were that brought that about either. But until the files were published, the Epstein Files, none of us knew the role that he played in all of these developments. We see Bannon and Epstein being in really close touch, and this is including after Epstein is convicted as a sex offender. Epstein being a sex offender was not a deal breaker for Bannon. Bannon was working on orchestrating not only Brexit, but the far right across Europe, organizing all the different parties like National Rally, which used to be Front National, the National Front in France, AfD, Alternative for Germany, all these horrible far-right parties. And here am I thinking, my parents' generation lived through a war to end Nazism, and now we're electing far-right parties. A worldwide revolution, Steve Bannon says to Jeffrey Epstein. Bannon, Farage, all of these people that we've been watching for some time, how Theresa May was toppled. In all of this, Epstein was involved. So, first of all, I started to think, and many others started to say, oh, Epstein must have been a Russian asset, because Putin is mentioned numerous times in the Epstein Files, and who stood to gain from the destruction of the European Union as a bastion of liberal democracy? Who would stand to gain from the breakup of a vast bloc of so many millions of people, all of whom lived in liberal democracies, and for them to break up into smaller countries and fiefdoms that had far-right governments? Surely that was Putin. But you know what? It's not only Putin that desires the breakup of the EU and the rise of the far right. It is the tech billionaires. It is the people who look for this dark enlightenment, which I've discussed with you before and will talk about again another time. The people that want to see the end of democracy. Peter Thiel didn't think women should have ever got the vote, doesn't think that poor people should have ever been allowed to vote, doesn't think democracy is a good idea. And every time we buy anything through PayPal, that's Thiel. The PayPal mafia. Democracy, the failed experiment, says Peter Thiel. So there are people who were close friends and associates of Epstein who also wanted to see Brexit, wanted to see liberal democracies come tumbling down, wanted to see chaos in society. So I'm going to look at the ways in which Epstein was an asset, but he actually wasn't a Russian asset. There's been, of course, the Israeli government has been very upset by how much Ehud Barak and Israel and the Israeli intelligence services are implicated in the Epstein Files, and propaganda is in place all the time. Like, he can't have been on the Israeli side when he was friends with an anti-Semite like Noam Chomsky, who actually can't really have been an anti-Semite because he's actually a Jew, and so on. So I've got people arguing on my social media. So was Epstein actually an Israeli asset? Was he actually a Russian asset? And I was thinking, well, it kind of seems like both and all and not anything. And then I found this great podcast series, The Epstein Chronicles, by Bobby Capucci. And in this one, he's talking about how Epstein was an asset, just not the way they're telling you. So here's what he's saying. Jeffrey Epstein was an asset, but not a traditional state-controlled intelligence asset. Certainly not a Russian operative. He functioned as a free Asian asset, so that means he was useful to many power centers simultaneously, without being loyal to any of them. That makes sense to me because it's absolutely obvious that the only loyalty Epstein had was to himself and his own enrichment and his own pleasure. Going on with Capucci, he provided services that powerful people and institutions could not provide for themselves openly. Access, secrecy, trafficking logistics, financial maneuvering, and deniability. His value came from non-exclusivity, not from allegiance. Russia was part of his operational environment, but so were the United States, Europe, Israel, and other regions. Epstein worked with Russian interests where it benefited him, but he did not work for Russia. So when we treat him as a Russian spy or Russian asset, we are misunderstanding what he did, says Capucci. To go on with what Capucci said, Epstein thrived in gray zones where criminals, oligarchs, intelligence services, and elites overlap, extracting profit and protection from all sides. His greatest protections came from Western institutions, including prosecutors, banks, and political elites, not from Moscow. Very important, his next sentence, the Russia-only narrative serves as a misdirection. By externalizing blame and shielding domestic systems that enabled him for decades. So I found that really, really important. Smokescreen after smokescreen. There is just one smokescreen after another. And that's been really, really confusing. Not a Russian asset, not even fully a part of the Israeli intelligence apparatus, just after himself and operating in that gray area. Also, another really interesting smokescreen that was put up was Epstein's involvement in far-right conspiracy theories. The 4chan website, all the white male misogynists, all the white male misogynists on the 4chan website. Pizzagate, a very interesting smokescreen because it talks about, Pizzagate is all about a pedophile ring with horrible things like cannibalism happening, and we've only gotten half apparently of the Epstein Files, and we don't know if things that people are saying about cannibalism and sacrifice were or were not part of what was going on Epstein's island. But it was definitely part of the Pizzagate smokescreen. And then, of course, at Pizzagate, it was supposed to be Democrats that were operating the pedophile ring and running everything. And then comes QAnon. And again, the pedophile party of Democrats and the deep state, and Trump is going to come along on his white horse as the knight in shining armor. Who's going to save us from all that? Not really. So that's why there was so much reluctance, obviously, to release the files in which Trump is named numerous times, more times than Putin, more times than Clinton. Trump is named so many times. With all the redactions and all that's been withheld, there's still very much that we don't know. But we now know that it's not that a ring of pedophile Democrats and a deep state have been running everything. It's that the whole establishment is rotten to the core as regards pedophilia, pedophilia in the sense of trafficking children, largely girls, from disaster zones, war zones, and poor countries to be sexually abused and misused and victimized. This much we do know. And again, because of all the redactions, everyone who has resigned or apologized or sees that they're implicated in the files and has to say something immediately says, of course, they never went to the island, which is interesting because apparently no one ever went to the island, which is strange because that's what Jeffrey Epstein did, was run vacations on the island where people could go abuse underage girls. Apparently nobody ever went there. Even if some of these people that are named in the files did not themselves go to the island and abuse the girls and the little girls, they didn't care that their associate was doing that. It wasn't a deal breaker for them. I'm sorry, it wasn't a deal breaker for Chomsky, who at one point used to be a hero of mine, although I've gone off of him for quite a long while after he disbelieved the chemical attack in Syria, which I could see the footage with my own eyes. As a doctor, I could see what it was. I mean, I didn't have to be like an expert to see that that was real. Deepak Chopra, all these people, Bannon, supposed to be a Catholic, all these people, maybe it's true that they didn't go for the vacations in the island, but it was fine with them when their associate was immersed in trafficking girls to be abused. My goodness. So I'm also seeing and hearing everyone is horrified. Is this the world we live in? And I'd like us to step back and take a breath and appreciate that this is the world we have always lived in for thousands upon thousands of years. This started the moment the first plow broke the soil. This started the moment the first farm animal was domesticated, because that's when the dominator paradigm began. Above all, this started with the chariot, the wheeled chariot. Right now with the students, I'm teaching them history of Ayurveda and history of India. We have just studied the Indus Valley civilization, and we're moving on to the Vedic Aryans, and they're starting to see the importance of the horse and the chariot. And Joseph Campbell talks about this, and he talks about how once there is a man with a horse and a chariot and some sort of armor and a sword and a shield, and not having a chariot are the children and the women and the poor. At that moment, the dominator paradigm takes hold. You have the dominators and you have the dominated. And from that moment on, this sexual abuse of little girls and little boys and women and poor people, men as well, has been happening. It's been going on for thousands of years. We had the masculine age, the age of Aries, roughly 4,000 to 2,000 years ago, where the dominator paradigm really took hold. Then we had the age of Pisces, an age of patriarchy, and hierarchy and duality, and still very much in the dominator paradigm. And now we are living in the long, dark shadow of Pisces, with a new world stirring to life. And in that long, dark shadow of Pisces, all these horrible things are happening, but they're also coming to light. So it is truly a horror to have these files revealed to us and really see how our whole society was permeated with either involvement in or indulgence of or covering up the trafficking of children for sexual abuse. But here is where the hope comes. The hope comes in the fact that we are horrified. We have the capability to be horrified about this because we know it's wrong. And this is what's new. Something that has been going on forever. Slavery has been going on forever. Slavery was until recently a huge part of this country. And we know that the enslaved people were being used and abused not only for their physical labor, but also for their sexual services, not services because they weren't providing them on purpose, but they were being sexually used and abused, as well as used and abused and enslaved for their labor as well. This has been going on throughout history. And what's new is that we are horrified by it. And we don't think it should be happening because we know it is wrong. So in the first half of the 20th century, all these atrocities happened. 2 world wars, the Holocaust, all these atrocities. And then the world came together. The world came together to create the United Nations, and the world came together to create the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and to create humanitarian law. And it is based on these that we really know that what was going on with Epstein is wrong, and that everyone that tolerated it was in the wrong. Everyone that overlooked it is implicated. Everyone that knew that children were being abused and trafficked and didn't say anything was wrong. Morally wrong and criminally wrong, both in domestic and international laws. Children have rights. So we find our hope in the fact that we know this is wrong. That we have sought to create structures to have accountability for this. We never had this kind of accountability before. This is where our hope lies. The fact that we do believe in something better. We want to shake this off. So how are we going to shake off this class of people who abuse women and abuse children and traffic them? Not by violent revolution. I don't think violent revolution is going to help us. I don't advocate violent revolution. But there must be a revolution, and it must be a revolution of soul force, as Gandhi taught, as Martin Luther King taught. The satyagraha, the soul force, it's about standing up in every possible way and saying no. It is about using our power to vote while we still have it. It is about standing up for voting rights and not letting them be taken away from people. It's about voting into power the people that are not a part of this. It is about coming with love and compassion to our democratic process. It's about making an effort with the pen and in the streets and social media, with your laptop, with your phone, in your streets, making an effort. Look at the amazing work that people are doing in Minneapolis as they stand up to say no to the abuses of ICE. It's a great example to all of us. It's difficult to be clear what's really been happening in Iran, but it may be that it's fundamentally people rising up, simply taking to the streets unarmed to ask for something else to unseat the regime. We know it's been terrible, we know it's been a massacre, but let's admire the people who have given their lives, not taken lives of others, but given their own lives to stand up for something better, something that isn't a culture of abuse of women. Standing up for a better life. So we have the power. We, the people, we have the power. It's really important that we don't let these smoke screens distract us. It's not about Russia, although Russia is truly an important part of the files. It's not even about Israel, although definitely Israel is a very important part of what Epstein was involved in. It's not about all the things we're getting in the anti-Semitic tropes. It's about the dominator paradigm and all the people, the rich people, the people who have today's equivalent of the chariot, the horse, the sword, and the shield, be that the private jet or the super yacht or whatever today's equivalent, the people who feel themselves entitled to have, to take, to get, to take from others. And we, the people of the world, we, the ordinary people, standing up for our rights. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. This is our hope, this is our prayer, as Martin Luther King said. Every day, let us get up to make the world a better place by using our voice, using our vote while we still have it, helping those who are being deprived of their rights, standing up for the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Every day, let us do something to free ourselves from this network of abusers and those who do not care when children are abused. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Ayurveda and Spirituality with Alakananda Ma. We hope today's exploration has ignited a spark of curiosity and insight within you. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and share it with a friend. For more enlightening discussions and practical wisdom on Ayurveda and spirituality, subscribe and join our Facebook group, Alundi Ayurveda. To allow us to continue sharing valuable content, consider donating to Alundi Ashram. The links will be in the show notes. Until next time, may you walk the path of Ayurveda with grace and embrace the light of spiritual wisdom in your journey.
Trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivardanam urvarukamiva bandanam mrityormukshi